Coming into this weekend, rumors started circulating that the Elite Series may hold some races in Japan next year. Officials are reportedly negotiating with promoters from Twin Ring Motegi and Saitama. Japan has a sizable ARLA fan base, probably because of the recent success of Japanese drivers in the series, so we will have to see how this story develops. Now, onto the race weekend itself. The results of opening practice may indicate that tire management will be very important in this race. If you can save your tires, you might be able to run the race on just one pit stop. And now I will hand it over to Scott. Thank you, Earl. Points leader Kevin Monroe takes the Smash Beer Pole Award and the 3 bonus points that go along with it. Monroe's teammate Taylor Brillon completes the Zing Energy front row sweep by qualifying in second. Coming into the Snake, Monroe doesn't have the 65 cleared, and Brillon shoots out into the early lead with Rene Ricarmier sweeping into the second spot. Brillon and Ricarmier are battling with Kevin Monroe for the championship, so of course they're going to try to prevent Monroe from leading the first lap of the race. Monroe continues to lose positions as the White Mountain Motorsports cars of CJ Cameron and Ricky Flush get by him, and he will now be challenged by Edwin Schwartzlowski, another one of his M&J teammates. In the middle of the first lap, Holden Roberts runs the track wide, and Gary D'Souza gets into the back of him, sending the 165 spinning way off into the grass, and very close to the wall, protecting the crowd. I really think that opening should be closed up. Roberts is able to continue. Rene Ricarmier chases down Taylor Brillon, and he will get a run on her coming down the front stretch. We expected Ricarmier to run up towards the front this week, as both of his victories this year have come on road courses, and he is certainly delivering so far. He gets by the 65 coming into the Snake with CJ Cameron in tow, but Cameron and Brillon will be battling each other through the Snake, allowing Ricarmier to get a huge run off the corner. Barry Spengler has not had a very good season so far, and it's about to get worse as he makes contact with Rybert Scott on lap 2 and goes head-on into the wall, coming into the garbage dump. Let's go on board with Rybert Scott as he's chasing Spengler through the S's. And it looks like Spengler swerved to the right a little bit and came across Rybert Scott's nose, so I'm going to have to say that was more of a racing incident than anything. Ricky Flush, who won round 2 at Appleton last week, is running up inside the top 5 today, and he's closing in on his teammate CJ Cameron. He pulls out to make the pass. Kevin Monroe looks to make a 3-wide contact between Flush and Monroe, and they both go off into the sand. That is the points leader and another one of your championship contenders. It looked like that started when Flush and Cameron made contact, and then Kevin Monroe did stick his nose in there, but for the most part, he was an innocent victim. Flush drops back to 38th, and Kevin Monroe, who we're riding on board with now, is 39th. Rene Ricarmier comes under attack from Taylor Brillon. She decides that he's hogged the spotlight for long enough. She noses ahead of the zero coming out of the garbage dump, but Ricarmier will have the preferred line throughout the next 3 corners, which are all right-handers. Brillon's holding her own pretty well, but here comes Ricarmier, and he will clear the 65 coming out of that corner. And even with all of this battling, you see that the leaders are pretty far ahead of the rest of the field. Edwin Schwartzlowski is up to the 3rd spot. But Brillon's going to get another shot a couple laps later. She gets a run and drag races with Ricarmier all the way down the front stretch. Ricarmier is going to lead the lap, but Brillon will have the preferred line coming into the Snake. They're both hard on the brakes, and Brillon will sail through the corner to retake the lead. Here are Drew Eisenman and Jared Anderson battling for position on lap 7. Eisenman looks to the right, Anderson throws the block, and they make contact. Anderson goes into the grass, and I think there might have been a little more contact between the 26 and the 9. Let's go on board with Drew Eisenman. He pulls out to try to make the pass, even though he didn't have a whole lot of room. They made contact, and it looks like Eisenman wasn't too happy with that. On that same lap, Edwin Schwartzlowski hits the pit lane, and not very many other cars are going to follow him. It looks like Schwartzlowski may not have been too conservative with his tires. At the beginning of lap 8, Gary D'Souza dives into the Snake to make it 3 wide with Rip Tyler and Brenda Riggs. Tyler hops the curb, gets into Riggs, and sends the 67 and 149 off the course. I don't think either Tyler or Riggs will be too happy with D'Souza, and especially Riggs, because this is not the first run-in the 67 and 149 have had. Last season at Mosport, they got into an incident coming to the white flag. At the end of lap 8, CJ Cameron comes into the pits, and he seems to have pitted very early as well. Most of the field would come in on lap 9. Taylor Brillon is still the leader at this point. Renee Ricarmier is still right behind her. David Krikorian, CJ Dejau, and Ricky Navarro come in. Ali Riggs is in. Jared Anderson, Mamba Kumengu, Dan McKay, Harry Enola, Benji Flynn, Leigh Gruel, Brenda Riggs, Nick Howard, Bigsby Foote. Oh, looks like Patrick Carroll and Henrietta Laverne made a little bit of contact. Drew Eisenman and Kiriki Hitsuno would stay out for an extra lap and fight each other for the lead of the race before they come in. Rip Tyler and Jacob Eichholz, one of the championship contenders, were behind them, and they make contact coming into the pits. Tyler really overdrove that corner, and I don't think Eichholz is going to be too happy with him. When pit stops cycle out, Taylor Brillon is still the leader, with Renee Ricarmier in second. Edwin Schwartzlowski is third, so his early pitting seems to have paid off for now. Then it is Cameron, Dejau, Navarro, Ali Riggs, Jared Anderson, Mamba Kumengu. Hawk Slider has worked his way up into the top 15. Dan McKay, Kiriki Hitsuno, David Krikorian, Drew Eisenman, Leigh Gruel, Benji Flynn, Brenda Riggs, Harry Enola, Anthony Griffith, Henrietta Laverne. Nick Howard is battling for position with Herbie Finkelberg. Kevin Monroe is still stuck towards the back of the field after his incident with Ricky Flush. Michael Madrigal is right behind him. He's having a terrible day, and you see them going by. Robert Scott, he just had a minor self-spin. And here's an incident that happened moments ago in that same corner. Holden Roberts pushes up into Philip Borland and goes around. He was actually making some progress through the field after going into the grass on the first lap, but this will set him back again. Edwin Schwartzlowski pits once again on lap 13. He is not going to try to make it the rest of the way on just the one stop. Taylor Brillon and Renee Ricarmier also find themselves having to make an additional stop. You're going to also see CJ Cameron diving into the pits, CJ Dejau, Ricky Navarro. Jared Anderson stays out this time by. Ali Riggs is in. Mamba Kumengu is in. Hawk Slider, Dan McKay. We're waiting for some more cars. David Krikorian stays out this time by. Leigh Gruel is in. Kiriki Hitsuno, Drew Eisenman, and Brenda Riggs stay out this time by. Jared Anderson comes into the pits on the next lap. We're waiting to see who follows him, if anybody. David Krikorian stays out again, and so do Hitsuno and Eisenman. Brenda Riggs bites the bullet and comes into the pits. It looks like Krikorian, Eisenman, and Hitsuno are trying to make it on just the one pit stop if they can manage their tires. During practice, a few drivers had their tires explode after running too hard for too long, so we'll see if Krikorian can take it easy while maintaining the lead and possibly grab his second win in a row. Drew Eisenman and Kiriki Hitsuno have been going at it for quite some time, so they're not exactly doing themselves any favors as far as their tire situation goes. But Drew Eisenman is a former Team Master Cup Series driver, and Kiriki Hitsuno specializes in road racing, so we believe they might know how to save their stuff while battling each other at the same time. With just a few laps to go, David Krikorian has to come into the pits. And right behind him, Drew Eisenman and Kiriki Hitsuno decide to stay out. So Eisenman and Hitsuno are going for it. Eisenman has a pretty comfortable lead over the 06. Those two will be teammates at MRD Motorsports in 2012. Looking back at Kevin Monroe towards the end of this race, he had to make a second stop, and he has not made too much progress. And all of his points rivals are in this round, so this is going to hurt him quite a bit. But all eyes were on Drew Eisenman as he comes down the final stretch to take his first career victory in only his third start. He simply drove away from Hitsuno in the closing laps. Coming in third is Jacob Eichholz in the 231. This is going to mean a lot for his title hopes going into Rockford next week. Coming home fourth will be Rip Tyler, despite getting into two incidents during the race, including that contact with Eichholz coming into the pit lane. Edwin Schwartzlowski finishes fifth, even though he made his pit stops really early. And finishing behind Schwartzlowski is Taylor Brillon. In fact, Schwartzlowski took the fifth spot from her on the last lap. CJ Cameron finishes 7th in a bittersweet showing for White Mountain Motorsports. CJ Dejau finishes 8th in his final start for MRD Motorsports. He will drive for Kurt Walker at Rockford. Jared Anderson finishes 9th in car number 9, and Renee Ricarmier dropped back quite a bit in the closing laps. He rounds out the top 10. And now it is time for round number 2. Joseph Howard takes the Smash Beer Bull Award with Matas Kazimieras on his outside. Kazimieras has not done much all season, and he does not have a ride lined up for 2012, so he could be trying to redeem himself with this qualifying effort. Howard gets a pretty good start, and coming into the snake, Tyson Lautenschlager makes it 3 wide with Kazimieras and Shane Blake. This allows Howard to get a big run off the corner. And you see Howard's teammate Amy Patty moving up into the 3rd spot. Like Siju Dejao, this is also Amy Patty's final start with MRD, although she does not currently have a ride lined up with anybody for the future. On the first lap, Jeremy West runs turn 4 wide and collides with Yevgeny Kuznetsov and goes for a spin. However, he will get going again. Also on the first lap, Scott Dalitz gets into the back of Cletus McGuffey in the 04 and almost sweeps across the front bumper of Jason Bates. So we've got a slightly more chaotic first lap than in round number 1. At the beginning of lap 2, Joseph Howard receives a challenge from Matas Kazimieras. Here comes Tyson Lautenschlager. He gets a big run into the snake, and he collides with Joseph Howard, taking both cars off the course. This is not the first time Lautenschlager has wrecked Joseph Howard out of the lead of the race. They previously had a run-in at Mosport earlier in the season, and officials promptly slapped Lautenschlager with a 15-second penalty. Let's go on board with Lautenschlager. Ahead of him is the battle for the lead, and he jumped on the brakes really late. He overdrove the corner and got into the 17 car. He made that aggressive 3-wide move early on in the race, and it seems that he didn't learn his lesson. Paul Lyons in the 54 car for Team Berg qualified surprisingly well, and he was able to hold his spot in the top 20 in the opening laps. The Team Berg cars have been well off the pace this season, and so it's very refreshing to see them further up the field for once. The battle for the lead heats up between Amy Patty and Matas Kazimieras coming up towards the garbage dump. Lucas Sweeney is trying to close in, and I think there may have been a little contact between the 73 and the 11. Patty gets a run on the inside, and she completes the pass in the next corner. Now, the ARLA officials are infamous for looking down on the bump and run. Drivers who move others out of the way are often slapped with huge penalties, especially if the move was made for the lead of the race. And Amy Patty definitely got into the back of the 11 car. However, she was only given a warning for this. I would imagine that it's because the contact was very minor and it is still early in the race. Here is Jason Bates in the number 51 Carlink Revolution. He was almost wrecked on lap 1, and now on lap 7 he goes off in the snake, and Scott Dalitz joins him. The 18 car was the one who almost got into Bates on the first lap. Lucas Sweeney had been chasing down the leaders for the past few laps, and now he will get a run on Amy Patty for the lead of the race coming into the snake. Patty gets a terrible run as Sweeney completes the pass, and Matas Kazimieras hard into the back of the 73. For anyone wondering if he was upset about that bump Patty put on him, I think that just about confirms it, and Kazimieras is still going to have the momentum to get by Patty for second. Wyatt Dyers is running midfield in the number 91 Greaseburger machine, and he's going to make a little bit of contact with James West. Dyers got into a wreck at Appleton last week, and now this happens. He's been subbing for the injured Phil Summers, and I'm sure he'll be happy to hand the car back over to Summers at Rockford after the couple of weeks he's been having. A few others are going to be coming in, including Wesley Savage, Nami Mura, Todd Stater, Jason Teller, Tyson Lautenschlager, Kyle Eckerton, Joseph Howard, Scott Morales, Chuck Bloomers. We're waiting for a few more. Here comes Lucas Hunter, Paul Lyons, James West, Zach Webster, Rachel Gonzalez, Jeremy West, Scott Dalitz, Jason Bates. Waiting on a few more. AJ Young, Cletus McGuffey. Contact between the 55 and the 04. On the next lap, race leader Lucas Sweeney hits the pit lane. Matas Kazimieras follows him in. Dale Underwood comes in. Alex Carson, Nico Petrov, Shane Lake, and the 82D is around. It looks like there is contact between him and the 20. Here's another look at it. Petrov is going to swing wide coming into the pits, and so does Lake. That will send Lake around in what has been a rather lackluster race for him so far. The same thing is going to happen to Mike Howard and Andy Pearson. They both come in a little too hot, and the result is the 610 going around. Todd Rudarczyk and Bob Steffens get trapped behind him, and the 3-car gives Howard a little boost. And you see Damian Snyder swerving. Same thing here. Kyle Gaffigan gets into him, and Damian Snyder is actually able to save the car. When pit stops cycle out, Lucas Sweeney is still the race leader by quite a margin over Amy Patty and Matas Kazimieras. Dale Underwood is 4th, Alex Carson 5th, Nico Petrov, Wesley Savage having another good run. Then it is Quiggles, Joseph Howard, Shane Lake is still running in the upper midfield after spinning. Tyson Lautenschlager, the 2 Zenith cars of Jason Teller and Kyle Eckerton, Andy Pearson, Scott Morales, Chuck Bloomers, Todd Stater. The hood's missing on that car for some reason. I think he might have had a little bit of pit lane contact that we missed. James West is trying to find a way around Paul Lyons, who has fallen to around the lower midfield. Oh, contact between the 69 and the 54. Lyons goes hard into the wall. Lyons was actually showing a bit more speed for once, and now he has nothing to show for it. Joseph Howard has made his way back up into the top 15 after being wrecked by Tyson Lautenschlager. However, I'm sure he would be running much higher up if not for that incident. As we previously mentioned, Wesley Savage is having another great run in that 6 car. Savage had a terrible start to the 2011 season. In fact, at one point, he had more DNFs than anybody else. But in recent weeks, he's been pulling out some top 10 runs. This could be because he's looking for work. Devin Rogers Motorsports is not going to return to ARLA after the 2011 season, and now Savage is giving it all he's got for potential future car owners. On lap 16, the Zenith teammates are still running together. Oh, and they make contact! Teller hard into the inside wall! Off the final corner! Eckerton spins back up onto the track and he backs up! In front of Bob Steffens! The 211 car is completely destroyed. That had no reason to happen. Steffens goes out of the race, as well as Eckerton and Teller. Namimura almost added herself to that list. She was running right behind Steffens, and, they clear a path for her. I'm pretty sure Mura is going to make Steffens and Eckerton split her dry cleaning bill. Lucas Sweeney still leads with a handful of laps to go. He almost gets held up behind Derek Dudding, but he clears him coming into turn number 3. But if you look, you're going to see that Matas Kazimieras is starting to close the gap. The handling appears to be going away on the 8 car. And Kazimieras did not take too much longer to catch Sweeney. He's almost on the 8's back bumper coming down the front stretch. Amy Patty is lurking back in 3rd. She's been trying to follow the 11 as he tries to catch Sweeney. Sweeney enters the snake, and Kazimieras appears to have a slightly better line, and the gap shrinks to less than 2 car lengths. Coming to the white flag, Kazimieras falls behind a little bit. Amy Patty is creeping closer to the leaders. Down into the snake for the final time. Matas Kazimieras has been faster through this section of the track for the past few laps, and he does so once again, and Amy Patty is right there as well. The top 3 are practically locked together on the run down into turn 3. No one can make a move yet, though. Sweeney starts to wash up the track through 3 and 4, but Kazimieras can't take advantage. Sweeney has 3 victories to his name so far, and he's trying to make it number 4 today, but the 2 drivers behind him have yet to win their first race. Sweeney starts to open his lead, coming up through the S's. Coming into the garbage dump, the lead is up to 2 car lengths. Kazimieras starts to close in through the corner. Sweeney runs it a bit wide. Kazimieras goes for the left. But Amy Patty has a different idea and shoots to the right side of Kazimieras. Sweeney is wide once again, and Amy Patty is there! And she will have the preferred line through the next set of corners. Oh, contact between the 8 and the 11! Patty brilliantly takes advantage of a hole that opened up for her. Kazimieras follows her by the 8 car, trying to get a draft off of the 73. Kazimieras and Sweeney are still fighting each other, but Kazimieras gets away from Sweeney, coming off the final corner. Kazimieras is squeezing every bit of power he can out of that car, trying to inch forward and make a run. But it is not enough, as Amy Patty takes her first ARLA Elite Series victory in her final start in that 73 car. She will also complete the Decatur sweep for MRD Motorsports. Dale Underwood finishes a distant 4th. Alex Carson brings home a top 5, which has been very hard to come by for him this season. There was a drag race for 6th between Ebenezer Quiggles and Nico Petrov, with Quiggles barely beating out the 20 car. But watch what happens to these two afterwards. They get together just past the museum, and they carry each other into the wall. Quiggles goes for several rolls as Petrov almost does a front flip. I can safely say that I have never seen anything like this happen before, and we've been told that this accident will be investigated very thoroughly. Wesley Savage came home 8th. You probably saw his 6th car in that last shot. Chuck Bloomers gets another good finish in that 89 car. And then Shane Blake bounces back from his pit lane spin to finish in 10th. And you see his car owner, Andy Pearson, finishing right behind him. And now, here are the point standings heading into the Rockford 200. The drivers whose points totals are in white are eligible for the championship, and the point totals in red are mathematically eliminated. Kevin Monroe finished 28th in his round, bringing his rivals ever so closer to him. Ali Riggs and Jacob Eichholz are tied for second. Both are 26 points behind. However, the tiebreaker is Ali Riggs' 3 wins. Jacob Eichholz has none. Taylor Brillen is 4th, 32 points behind. She has been very fast in the last third of the season. Rene Ricarmi sits 5th. He did not finish as well today as we thought he would. And CJ Cameron is the last of the championship contenders. His only win of the season came in his debut. By the way, Cameron also failed to qualify for the 150 laps of Dwyer, so who knows where he'd be if he had made that race. I would also like to note that all 6 of our contenders are chasing their first title. 3 of them, Eichholz, Ricarmier, and Cameron, are in their rookie seasons. Harry Inola is a whopping 121 points back. Ricky Flush will not be making it. 2 White Mountain cars battling for the championship. Joseph Howard is 9th, and Andy Pearson rounds out the top 10. And now let's look at 11 through 20. Edwin Schwartzlowski is 11th, Bigsby Foot 12th. Michael Madrigal had a terrible day, and he falls back to 13th. Rip Tyler is 14th, Brenda Riggs 15th, Gary D'Souza 16th, Leigh Gruel 17th, Rybert Scott 18th, Siju Dejau 19th, and Lucas Sweeney cracks the top 20 with his 3rd place finish.